Know someone in your life celebrating a birthday? They deserve to feel truly celebrated. That's what 1-800-Flowers has helped people do for 50 years, turning everyday gestures into meaningful moments of connection. And this April, during their 50th birthday celebration event, when you buy one bouquet, get a second bouquet 50% off. Celebrate more birthdays with our 50th birthday event all April long at 1-800-Flowers.com/podcast. Buy one bouquet, get a second bouquet 50% off at 1-800-Flowers.com/podcast.
This is Stephanie Diaz de Leon.
This is Omar Waheed.
And this is Rob Chappell.
And it's 365 Amplified. And I will say, we walked in. Omar and I did.
This room was a mess.
It was a mess.
Everything was slightly to the right.
Uh-huh.
It was.
And Omar and I quietly, while Rob left the room for something else, so went to grab something.
Adjusted it all back.
Uh-huh.
Controlling the chaos. Putting order back into the world,
space.
The space.
The only thing we can control right now is this room. And Rob tried to change that.
And move chairs.
Uh-huh.
I'm back where I'm supposed to be.
I'm back where I'm supposed to be. And we put Rob back where he was supposed to be. We can't change that, Rob.
It was upsetting.
It was.
Listener, they were like shifted to the right by about a foot.
Yes.
That's so much. It's not even
dramatic.
like a couple
inches. I
no
longer had my view of the window, like outside.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Stephanie had to turn her head slightly to see the window.
No, I didn't. We moved you.
Because sometimes sirens are going, and
we
want to know
from.
Which way they're going.
Yeah.
Just in case you want to chase them later.
We like familiarity.
Look, like we said, this is the only place that we can control.
Right.
This is actually just mental illness.
It's a form of, not complete mental illness. It's like one of them.
All right, in a little bit.
Poor Rob trying to get started.
We're going to be joined by Mika Glass, who is the interim independent police monitor for the city of Madison. Mm-hmm. She was in the news this week, and we're going to get her perspective on things, and we'll talk a little bit about that story. But first, that's basically a common council story, and we'll talk about that in a second, a little bit before we get to that interview. But other common council news this week. Mm-hmm. First of all, there were two new. This is the first time that only half of the city council is up for re-election.
Yeah, that's a huge.
Is this the second time? First time or second time? I think it's the first time. Although it might be the second time. Okay. But basically, they used to turn over the entire council every year.
Yeah. And
now they're doing it only every other year. So only even numbered districts were up this year, and next year it'll be odd numbered districts. So of those 10 races, there are 2 new alders. Mm-hmm. One of whom is Noah Lieberman, who replaced Isidore Knox, who left the council. Folks might remember 2 elections ago, Noah Lieberman and Isidore Knox tied.
Mm-hmm. And there was
and Isidore Knox won the coin toss.
Yeah, the coin toss. That's what it was. I'm like doing this like everyone can see me.
Yeah.
Like pretending to flip a coin.
How did he feel about losing a coin toss for an elected position?
I don't know.
I
didn't ask him.
Would be mad. There would be loss.
Yeah.
He ran again against Isidore and lost. And then this time when Isidore Knox was leading the council, he won the election for the open seat. And then MGR Govindaranjan, District 8, is leaving the council. So his replacement is Ellen Zhang, who is a sophomore at UW.
Yes.
And you talked to her, right?
I did. Who knows why MGR left? We can only guess as to
I feel like Omar knows.
The outrage from abandoning his platform. And all the pressure from students.
We'll talk more about him because he's part of the PCOB story. Go ahead, tell us about Ellen Zhang.
Ellen Zhang, she describes her, well, she's a student at UW-Madison, first and foremost. She's a sophomore. She's studying economics, sociology, and pursuing certificates in gender and women's studies and data science. But she describes herself as a student, artist, and activist of Chinese American parents from Green Bay. So she's from Green Bay. She's from here in Wisconsin, and she moved on down for school, and her whole family is here. And so the Jang family is now a Dane County family, and maybe a future dynasty of politicians. Who knows? But Jang, she didn't necessarily want to get into politics, but she thought it was the best vehicle to make changes and solve people's problems, which is the basis of why she wanted to run. Her platform is largely centered on affordability, tenant protections, transportation, public safety, sustainable infrastructure, and affirming Madison's sanctuary city status.
Nice.
So she's here, she's new, she's excited, and first and foremost, she wants to figure out how to solve all the problems she sees around the city. There's one thing she's really inspired to do is getting all the places you can rent around Madison to disclose whether or not they're energy efficient.
Or not.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Because it doesn't impact someone's like utility bill.
Yes.
Yeah. So much.
She didn't. Her first apartment she rented, she was told by property management to keep the heat on all throughout January. And she did not realize how much that would pump up your heating bill. And it was $110 higher than October. I don't know how long it's been since our listeners have been students, but
even
that's
now,
a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's a lot.
I mean,
and
like,
students don't make much money.
No, if any. There's like, if they're working, if they're able to work, if school isn't too much. But also, like, I don't know, as grown-ups, we play the game of like, okay, this week is really hot. Do we just leave the windows open? What time do we turn on do we even move into air conditioning? Like you play that game.
I'm in
even
air
as adults.
conditioning, man, all the time. Coolant smell gives me a headache, but I am allergic to all the things out there. So I kind of don't have a choice.
You don't have a choice between what can you be less allergic to?
It's headache or can't breathe. So
it's one or the other.
One is a little more intense.
Yeah.
But $110 bill out the wazoo is upsetting for everyone. So she learned more about energy efficiency and how that has a very significant impact in terms of affordability. Wisconsin on a state level has a lot of laws passed where we can't really do anything about the affordability, but energy efficiency is one thing that we can do.
Yeah.
So that's something she's strongly pushing for.
She was there. They had their organizational meeting at noon on Tuesday, and the two new alders as well as the 8 that were reelected were sworn in, and her parents were there with the phone out, videoing the entire thing. Like,
so was Rob, though.
Well, I was there for different reasons, but it was very. But I 100%, if it's like my kid there, I would be there and sort of running to get a better angle, as it was very cute.
Yeah.
But also at that meeting, Sabrina Madison was elected president by acclamation, meaning there were no other nominees. And Carmella Glenn, who coincidentally sits right next to Sabrina, is elected vice president. So they got a quick selfie as soon as that was done.
I know.
Because they were right next to each other.
Yeah.
But this is significant because it's the first time that 2 Black women are in those positions on the Common Council.
Which is crazy to me. That's crazy to me, y'all.
I think that's sensible for Madison.
Yeah.
I will always hold you all to a higher standard, even if you don't hold yourself. So that is crazy to me that you all took that long to get there.
I hold Madison to a lower standard.
I know. So that way I don't get disappointed. But I'm all right. But that's crazy.
I still get disappointed.
I am glad to see it. Absolutely. They are both incredible representatives for their areas and for Madison itself. But it is crazy to me when I read that, and I was like, what?
It's never been. There have been Barbara Harrington McKinney, Sherry Carter have both been president, but they didn't have a Black woman vice president.
Did they ever have a Black person, like a vice president?
Samba Balda was president, and there was a Black woman vice president. It was either Sherry Carter or Barbara Harrington McKinney. I'm sorry, I can't remember right now, but that was the first time there were 2 Black people. In those roles. And that wasn't very long ago either.
No, that wasn't. I was going to say, like, I thought that was only just a handful ago, maybe.
Yeah, it was like maybe, it was within the last 10 years.
Yeah.
So I talked to them a little bit about their agenda and about what they want to accomplish. And it was the first time I've ever gotten to use the word "turnt" in the story, because Sabrina said, "I am turnt for little black girls who can see us."
You don't have to use that word though.
I would like to hear him use it more.
It just doesn't seem to.
To
like
be clear, I did not use the word. I got to quote Sabrina saying it.
I'm saying, but you don't even have to say the quote. You can say that she's excited.
When she said that, I was like, "That's the first time I'm ever going to put "turnt" in a story." And she was like, "Make sure you do,"
because that's the word for word, right? But like, it just didn't come out of you.
No, it does not.
Organically.
It does not. Which is what I was saying.
I did like the way it sounded when you said it, though.
Because there was that pause, so you can like exclaim it.
I had to say it the whitest way possible.
He was excited.
I know. He was like, that's why he took a breath before you said it. That's why there's a pause.
Turnt.
So after the,
and he even got like his shoulders went up. It's a whole thing, the whole body.
After the organizational meeting, then they adjourned because that was technically a committee of the whole, and then they had the regular meeting Tuesday night, which is one of those marathon meetings. Madison has been known to have very, very long common council meetings.
Yes,
very long. I think you both have been in some.
I think the latest I stayed was 3 a.m.
Yes.
One time.
Yeah, and that was kind of every time for a while there.
Yeah.
In fact, when they were they always do like a resolution thanking the outgoing president and vice president, and Regina Vitiver was the president, and they actually put in the resolution one of the whereases was that the average meeting length was 2 hours and 10 minutes or something like that, which was way shorter than usual.
Yeah.
That was like a thing they were commending her for, just keeping the meetings.
They should commend her for that.
Yes.
That's an accomplishment.
Yeah. To be fair, this particular meeting was long, mostly because of public comment and questions from the alders to the people who were giving public comment. And what they were giving public comment about was the Police Civilian Oversight Board, PCOB, which has had a rocky start, right? And we'll talk more about this with the current person holding down that job, which is Mika Glass. She'll have a lot to say. But basically, MGR introduced an ordinance amendment, because that office and that board were established by ordinance in 2020. And MGR introduced an amendment that would clarify that even though it's independent, the PCOB and the OIM still have to adhere to city policies. And
such as?
So what does that mean? What do you mean?
Such as?
What do you mean?
IT security policies, HR policies, stuff like that.
Not using AI to spawn 2 Capitol buildings.
Sure. I'm not sure if that was policy or if that was just embarrassing.
That was actually an ordinance to not use any AI from the city for a bit.
For their like
the
visualization of like the city.
When the OIM put out their annual report, the cover had 2 capitals on it, and it was clearly created by AI.
Yeah, I must say this again. I don't care if you use AI, and you can't use it for everything, right? You can't use it to write a full report, right? Like, however, whatever bits or parts of it, it is your due diligence in your formal role, professional roles, to check the work. You can't always tell me, well, it was AI's fault.
Well, we're going to talk a bit more about AI in a totally different story.
Oh, yeah.
All I'm saying is you can't block the view of the state capitol. Nothing can be higher than the state capitol.
That includes
you couldn't go outside.
Well, that photo. They basically use like the skyline looking across Lake Monona, and that 1 billion photos of that exist.
Yeah.
I
can just use that photo.
Can walk outside my apartment half a block. I live in Capitol View neighborhood. It's a view of the Capitol.
Okay, so that was sort of silly and
I think
not a huge,
but also you don't
huge
have to
deal.
sit
But
with
there
it
are
all.
and there are, like you said, there are policies around that, and this ordinance amendment would specify some of that stuff, which we'll talk more with Mika about the specific issues that led to this. Also, It specified that that the city attorney would be used by OIM for administrative matters, even though
What does that mean?
OIM is authorized to retain outside counsel for investigatory purposes.
Sure.
So that the city attorney is not representing both sides of a dispute, basically.
Well, and there is no way. You're fine, Rob. It's okay if I shake a table. Rob is like, don't shake this table.
I do like when he gets nervous.
I know.
Well, I'm trying to look at the mic stand to see if it can be tightened at all. Anyway, go ahead.
There is no way for a city attorney to represent both sides of an investigation like that. If you have an independent police monitor who is investigating the police, the city attorney's office, the city itself, the city attorney's role is to protect the city first, right?
Right.
And so if you have an independent monitor who is investigating, there's no way for them to clearly represent both sides.
Right, and that was written into the original ordinance.
Yeah.
And there is but money budgeted for OIM to retain outside counsel when needed.
But for how much? No, what's
like $50,000?
No, that's not enough, y'all.
Yeah,
that needs to go up a little bit more.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you right now. Are they able to ask for more money?
Well, you can always put in a request just like any other city department.
Okay. I'm just saying $50,000 is not enough. That's usually a consultation and like a first or second meeting.
There are
like for a retainer like that.
And there were alders who tried to zero out the PCOB and OIM budget last year.
No, you're all messy.
Yeah. So how this was interpreted by PCOB and others was basically trying to hamper the independence of the PCOB.
Sure.
And it comes after some tension, right? There was a moment when the police were going to stop sharing
information
data with them.
and data.
And Mika Glass was able to sort of resolve that. And I think what she'll say is that they basically had kind of solved all these problems already. And so this ordinance is kind of unnecessary, and this ordinance could then be used. Whether or not it's intended this way, it could be used to curtail the independence of the board. So, anyway, we'll get more into that at PCOB. But the new when I talk to Mika Glass, but the upside is after all that back and forth, and I kind of felt this coming that after a certain period of time, the city council loses its appetite to make a decision.
Sure.
When the people are that opposed to something, or people being that opposed, so they actually ended up deferring it. And so they're going to send the ordinance amendments, which Carmella Glenn added some more amendments to the amendment. And they're going to send that back to PCOB for its June meeting to consider. And then back to Common Council for its August 4th meeting. So they just basically kicked it down the road, saying this needs a bit more time and consideration.
Because summertime, the sun is out longer. So if they keep them like meeting past
3 a.m.
Right.
It'll feel like daylight sooner? I don't know. Or daylight longer, it won't feel as long?
I think that's actually worse because...
Yeah, no, I don't think...
When you get out and then the sun is up, in 3 hours, like, oh my God, did I spend that long in the Common Council? But if it's night and it's completely dark to like 5:30 and it's 3 a.m., you're like, oh, it's still night. I can sleep a little bit.
So do you think this is going to be something that will be a long meeting discussion in June, with the PCOB
possibly.
and in August? So this is going to be a returning conversation.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it'll come back. And
I imagine so, too.
It took them a while although actually it did take a little while to get it created, but not as long as I would have thought. But because it was 2020, there was a lot of momentum around oversight of police.
Yeah. There was concern about during the protests of how the police were acting, and there was no accountability being held and such like that.
And there was a sort of a nationwide moment of police accountability.
Yep.
So there was, it did happen pretty quickly in September 2020. And then
and maybe because it happened so quickly, there was not time to think about certain things that might come up and and so it's like retroactively trying to fix
a couple issues that
or at least have a discussion around a couple issues that they had not been aware of.
The office, it hasn't gone well.
Yeah, it's been kind of
bumpy.
Up and down, yeah.
So one hopes that it will smooth out now.
And then everybody's relationships is better. They kept communication about these things and stuff like that. Yeah.
So we'll talk a bit more about that after the break. But before that, another AI thing to talk about. And then we're just going to put a button on this CAYA Clinic story to refresh folks' memory or folks who are catching up. Late last year, the opioid settlement subcommittee recommended that Public Health Madison-Dade County use $2.5 million from the opioid court settlement, not taxpayer dollars, but from the court settlement, to establish a harm reduction center. And CAYA Clinic, which is a relatively new treatment or harm reduction and treatment facility on the east side, got the contract. They were one of 4 local organizations that put in a proposal, and they got the contract from the Board of Health. When I first went out to interview Skye Bowman, the CEO and founder there, I asked, so your proposal says this organization is led by people of color, but it's not. And she pretended that she didn't know that was in the proposal. And the next day, and I reported on that was just a misleading statement in their proposal. And the next day she said publicly that it was just, she had written this long proposal and then didn't realize there was a word limit and had to, at the last minute, cut it down and used AI to cut it down. And AI misinterpreted something because she said that the center they were going to build was going to be led by people of color, and it changed that to say that the current organization was led by people of color, and she's very sorry for that mistake. They were still going to go forward with it. I discovered in the weeks after that was not the only misleading statement in the proposal. They had listed a whole bunch of other organizations that were going to be subcontractors and partners in this that were led by people of color, including Aaron Perry, including Charlie Daniels, some other folks. And none of those people had ever agreed to be partners in this project. And ultimately, the Board of Health decided not to go forward with that contract and actually kind of start the whole process over with a needs assessment. After all that happened, we found out in the last couple of weeks that the CAYA Clinic Board of Directors terminated Skye Bowman. They fired their CEO and founder because of all this.
Oh.
Yeah. Now, in about a week after she was terminated, she put out a statement blaming AI for the whole thing.
This is what I'm saying. I'm going to tell you all again. If you use AI in a professional setting, even in your life, if you use it to write a text, an email, that's like anything, and you don't check it, that's on you. Like, that is your work, and you have a responsibility. You have a duty of care for what you put publicly out there about your organization, about your team, like about yourself, that it be accurate, especially when you are asking for money from a city or for a grant, for donations. That is your work and your job. And look, that one, your work and job is actually to write it yourself. 2, if you don't have time, okay, have AI write maybe a couple pieces of it. And 3, if you do it the other way where you have it write everything, it is your job. It is a duty of care. It is a duty for you in your leadership role, not just to have yourself check it, but have 4 other people within the organization to read it to make sure there are no mistakes.
Well, and after...
It is not AI's fault that did AI write or fire her? Like, is that why it's their fault?
Actually.
Did they write the letter? Maybe they did.
Especially after that
it's not a person.
That one falsehood was identified and you blamed AI after that. Why wouldn't you look at the rest of your proposal and say, well, I wonder what else AI did here? But the thing is, I don't believe for a second that it was actually AI, because what she's saying is that her original proposal, which was like thousands of words too long, listed a number of agencies that they would provide transportation to.
Sure.
And then by throwing it into ChatGPT or whatever, saying, cut this down to 500 words, AI then invented these partnerships and subcontractor relationships that were listed multiple times through the proposal.
Well,
that's just not credible that AI would do that.
I think AI would do lots of things, right? Like that's the problem, especially if you got the free model. Like you're all like, I'm a nonprofit, we're not doing this like this.
Yeah.
If you list everything in there and it asks you, like I think it asks you like prompts and stuff like that, or it will pull like, did somebody write like a fake story about something that didn't exist because AI just pulled up that randomness of it, like because it fit the narrative?
Yeah.
I would not be surprised, but it was close enough, right? Like it pulled like. I can't remember what it was, but like AI, like
They
added,
invented a bar downtown, and that ended up on the front page of the State Journal.
Yeah. But also nationally, it happened in other ways too, where it like also used existing businesses or such like that it could find, that it could search on the internet for, right, to fill in gaps for things. So maybe it did. Maybe she gave it everything that she could, and because she listed these 4 possible folks that she might want to work with, and it included there. I don't care. I don't like either way. Your duty of care, whether you wrote it yourself, check for the lies. If AI does it, check for the lies or the inaccuracies or the anything that seems to be like, and then an extension of the truth, if that's what we want to call it, if it makes her feel better. But the idea that she's unable still to take responsibility, right? To take ownership and accountability is why she got let go. It was not AI. Unless AI itself said, you know what, you should be fired.
Right.
Unless it like responded to some sort of problem that, like, and even then the person asked the question, like, no.
Right.
This is why this table is shaking.
We're going to turn the page to something much more fun.
Yeah.
And that is Barrio Dance, which has its main studio on East Wash, and also has a studio at Art House 360 in Verona, which we've covered a little bit recently. They took they have like a school and like classes and stuff like that, but then they also have like this sort of pre-professional dance company that performs around Wisconsin and around the country. And that company had gone to World of Dance, which is like this competitive thing. It was in Chicago. The regional was in Chicago. And then they did well enough there that they're going on to the international competition, which is in California. That's not till later this year. But about a month after, this is like in November, they were in Chicago doing World of Dance. And about a month later, AJ Juarez, the founder and director of the company, got an email saying, we think you should, we want to invite you to audition for America's Got Talent. And he was like, okay, it's a scam, clearly. But just in case, I'll respond. A week later, he's in a meet. He and Nicole Nelson, his assistant director, are in a Zoom with a bunch of producers from America's Got Talent. And they went out there last month. They were not able to tell me how it went.
Yeah, they're not allowed to.
But they did get to perform in front of Simon Cowell and Howie Mandel and whoever else of the judges. And that will air on June 2nd. So I have a story on that this morning at Madison365.org, just a little bit about that company and about those dancers and about that experience of getting whisked away to Los Angeles and having to cut your 8-minute piece down to 2 minutes for television, and just how that was. And it's Tuesday, June 2nd is their episode, so they're going to have a little watch party, but I think everybody should watch along, and we'll see how it goes and what might happen next, if anything.
Yeah. So
that was very exciting. And then just a couple 2 things I want to mention happening this weekend, or coming up soon. Just Dane is having their annual Jazz for Justice fundraiser, which is on Thursday, April 30th, which is also International Jazz Day, by the way. This is their second time they're doing this. Music will begin at 6 o'clock. This is at Atwood Music Hall over on Winnebago Street. And local bands Rare Element and Linda and the Zeros will perform. And then in an award ceremony between the sets, they're going to be honoring Ascendium Education Group with their Partners for Change Award, because the Ascendium supports not only Just Dane, but a lot of good community organizations here. And then they're going to give their Visionary Award to Betty Banks and Gene Erickson, and posthumously to Gadi Ben-Dan for all their work in the community. Tickets for that are $100, can be and are available now. And there's a link at the website, Madison365.org, to register. And then the other thing we want to highlight, which is this weekend, which is Saturday, It is Independent Bookstore.
It is Independent Bookstore Day,
which is awesome.
Which is great.
Yeah.
I got an email from the Book Deal. If you've been to that shop, it's a very cool shop. I like going there to get all my used books. And it said Saturday is National Independent Bookstore Day. I was like, I wonder how many Black-owned bookstores there are in Wisconsin. And I looked it up. There was 3. There's I have been informed now 2 after looking up all the details on them. And then surprise, surprise, there's a new one. 3 again.
Yeah.
There are 3 in all of Wisconsin out of an estimated around 200 bookstores, independent bookstores. 3 of them are Black-owned.
And where are they?
They are in Racine. That is Mahogany Gallery and Cultural Center, which is also an art gallery and a cultural center, but they do also sell books, especially from local authors of color. So technically a bookstore. So because they're so little, we're going to include that. Niche Book Bar, which has finally gotten a physical location after about 7 years of working on it. So do actually want to talk to them and get a profile written up relatively soon. And the newest one, this one is pretty exciting. This is Prairie Pages. It is opened by NFL player James Daniels, which I am reading about this and I was like, where have I heard the name James Daniels before? Unfortunately, he was a Hawkeye. That is the University of Iowa. I, of course, went to Iowa State. Always happy to throw in Iowa there. I'm excited that he opened a bookstore. I am so disappointed that it was a Hawkeye. Those are just internal feelings. But of those 3 stores, 3 across the entire state.
Where's the niche?
That is Sun Prairie.
Niche is in Sun Prairie?
No, Niche is in Milwaukee.
Okay. Prairie Pages is in Sun Prairie. I know that.
Prairie Pages is in Sun Prairie.
Yep.
Niche is in Milwaukee. Mahogany, Racine. There was a 4th one. Rooted Milwaukee, which great organization. I've been paying attention to what they've done, and I guess I just realized I haven't heard from them for a while, and they shut it down. So that's kind of a little disappointing.
I'm actually going out to Prairie Pages on Tuesday. I'm going to write up a little profile next week, so watch for that. But between now and then, it is Independent Bookstore Day, so stop by in Sunbury. If it helps at all, I was introduced to former Hawkeye James Daniels by former Badger Jeff Mack.
That's right.
I don't know if that helps at all.
I mean,
it's close enough.
I guess.
All right.
All right. We're going to take a short pause, and when we come back, Mika Glass will be here. And we're back, and joining us very generously with her time, Aeiramique Glass. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, thank you. Thanks for being here. I know it's been a kind of a wild week for you.
Yes, it's been a long week, but thank you for having me here.
So let's we're talking about this the which we mentioned a little bit earlier in the podcast, the Police Civilian Oversight Board and the Office of Independent Monitor ordinance and machinations around City Council. But first, we just want to introduce you to our people a little bit more. People have heard your name; they kind of know what you do, but tell us sort of your background, where you and how you came to find yourself in Madison.
Definitely. So I am originally from San Diego, California. So I'm born and raised in San Diego and did a lot of my work around nonprofits and working with organizations with the most vulnerable communities. I really found my area of love with juvenile justice and started to do a lot of work, direct service work, as well as juvenile justice counselor. And then I kind of just moved my way up and found myself in spaces where I was having to advocate for those that I were providing services for. And from there, started to really look into the systems that impacted people the most. and really started to look at the criminal justice system as an ecosystem, and found myself doing a lot of work around advocacy and activism with criminal justice reform, police reform, and reentry services. And so I spent the last 15 years working in criminal justice, the last 10 honing in. I was the chairwoman for the Chief of Police Board of Advisors. I've advised district attorneys, city attorneys. I was a program manager who started the first youth diversion and reentry that now is the Youth Development Center in the county of LA. So I overseen all of the law enforcement agencies to make sure that they were giving young people diversion services and restorative justice. And then from there, really continued to help to dismantle a civilian review board. And now we have the Independent Commission on Police Practice. Went to Baltimore, became the chief of police accountability, and flipped the city upside down there. And then now I'm here, giving all of the expertise and contributing the work I've done on a national level around police oversight and accountability here in the city.
My wife and the co-host of this podcast is from Chula Vista.
Chula Vista, yes! Oh,
yeah.
Wow!
So
we're piece of home.
We're in San Diego at least once a year. And you you actually didn't come straight from SoCal to here in December, which would have been foolhardy. But
right. Little transition,
great. So you came here. Is that right? In December or November?
I came here December. Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And what was your understanding of your charge, your role, your manifest? Like what were you brought here to do exactly?
So, number one, there's a couple of things. So we have national best practice when we are doing civilian police oversight, independent oversight. So there's a national mandate. And one of the things I think the charge is and was to come here and really get the office and the board to a place where it was operating effectively and efficiently. Obviously, the office has been in existence for 6 years now,
Mm-hmm, just about, yeah.
And the former monitor, I hear, had some great traits, but had a really hard time getting the office up and running the way it needed to be ran, as well as making sure that cases were being either reviewed or investigated. Policy, practices, and procedures were put in place, making sure the board and the office could operate under its full ordinance mandate independently. And so really bringing someone in with all of those experiences, as well as being able to look at everything from a systemic and holistic point of view, was the charge. So it was really to get us where we needed to be. Also, there's one other component, is being the hiring manager for the permanent independent police monitor.
Right, you're interim.
Yes,
technically.
yes.
Is that a possibility for you to hire yourself, or are you like I'm interim and then I'm out? Or
so honestly, I am as much. I don't know if I'm allowed to say the word hell on here, but as much hell as, okay, I am. As much hell as I have been experiencing, which is interesting here, I am really loving the community that I'm engaging with, and so many of the members of public are really encouraging me to stay. And so I don't want to completely write it off, but there would have to be a fair pathway forward. And I think I haven't made a decision on if I would stay. But if I did, I could not hire myself. It would be the board.
I know.
It would be the board making that decision to keep me.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's a possibility. You're not.
I haven't written it completely off.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what's happening recently. That as we sort of described in our coverage this week and earlier in the podcast, an alder put forth some amendments to the ordinance, which my understanding from their perspective is that it would basically clarify that the PCOB and the OIM have to or should or are supposed to adhere to city policies, APMs, administrative policy memos, which when you say it just like that seems reasonable, right? But there was concern from PCOB and from you that there was more to it than that, it was more about curtailing the independence of the office. Can you talk about what it was that led you to feel that?
Well, I think, as I said from day one, this ordinance that was created is one of the most powerful ordinances in the country. But it doesn't matter if it's not actualized, right? And so I think although I hear the history of how we got to this point, folks allowed it to the ordinance to pass who were resistant of it, like you heard the city attorney and others, because it was not operating the way it needed to be operating. So now that they have somebody in there and cases are actually getting closed and the board is actually functioning independently and the office is too and actually producing, you see all the ways in which while we are independent in ordinance, we're not independent in structure. And so for example, every department head in the city, except for me, answers to the mayor. The ordinance says and makes clear that we are to be completely independent of the mayor, as well as common council, other than, providing those reports and that just regular community and stakeholder engagement. With all of the agency heads answering to the mayor, if I have to get an expert opinion, if I have to pay a consultant, that goes through finance, that gives insight into the direction of investigations and what I'm looking at or what I may have found and need to get an expert opinion on. If we need a case management system, they wanted to criticize around things that took place prior to me being here, right? And so a lot of this is around things that happened prior to me getting here, but then they couldn't justify it in real time or get people to activate around it. So they started to try to create a narrative around me, or trying to reel me in. So when they talked about data sharing and security, I've worked in some of the top counties and cities with high-level security, but nothing where it takes 6 to 9 months to get a case management system or to get IT software that you need to be able to analyze sound and voice and do the forensic analysis that we need. And so if I was only here, which I'm interim, if I'm only here for 6 to 9 months and it takes 6 to 9 months to get a case management system and I need to produce these things, I'm doing everything manually right now. So everything that we do, we have to go through a multi-layered system to get just software that we need, just to get a system that we need. And then on a part of the IT system is also getting approval from the city attorney's office. We also have the city attorney's office who the attorney that was initially assigned before I came on board and told the city attorney I would not be utilizing this city attorney's services, they had the same city attorney who is assigned to our office, the independent police monitor, the PCOB, and MPD. So you are serving as counsel for MPD and our office. You have direct insight to all of.
Right. In an adversarial circumstance?
So as much as folks want to say it is not a conflict, I lay out in my memo how it has been. The city has not been representing this office and the board when we're talking about law, you have application and interpretation. And when I fundamentally disagree with the application or the interpretation of the city attorney's opinion on state law, and we've seen in other areas where the state has even disagreed with the city on their interpretation of the law, that's why we have counsel, so that each party can argument for each other. So when our own counsel is also the counsel for the entity that I am mandated to oversee, it is adversary by nature because they are always leaning on the defense of law enforcement. During negotiations with law enforcement associations and unions, there is liability. My whole entire job, right, when I'm reviewing and investigating cases, is to, one, be impartial and be fair and look at the facts. But it's also to advocate and uplift the things that are happening on the streets every single day. And that might result in the city being liable, the city and MPD being liable for what is taking place out there. And the city hates a lawsuit, and I understand why. But if the city attorney's job is to reduce any liability, and my job is to amplify certain things that may show where liability is, we are in direct conflict. It is inherent, right? And so while me and MPD leadership we don't have an adversary relationship. We actually have a pretty good open communication. We don't agree on everything, but we can navigate through as they are getting used to having an oversight system that works. The most resistance is coming from the city. And I know it's scary for folks while the office and the board has been in existence for 6 years, it hasn't been functional for 6 years. And that's something we can all say and admit, right? But now that it is functional, there's so many ways, and I paint this out in the report, in which you all only want to focus on the liability when there's so many things that you can do. When you're proactive, you don't always have to be reactive. And there's so many things that this office can help the city with to reduce lawsuits and to reduce police misconduct.
Right. And I remember I talked with Greg a couple years ago.
Okay.
And my understanding is that this isn't just, it's often described as a place where people can go to lodge complaints and it's going to respond to complaints and investigate. But it sounds like that's only one of the functions. That the other function is oversight, meaning constant checking on data, looking for problems before they become problems. Right? Is that fair? Is that part of your mandate?
Yes. Looking at trends, patterns, practices. I always say, like, when something comes on my desk, I'm looking at the pattern. Am I seeing a lot of this? Do we need to address this and give a recommendation?
And that's why you need a data analyst.
And that's why you need a data analyst.
And a data analysis system, analysis.
Yes.
I'm just over here making up words. A data analysis, like, tools.
Exactly.
Right? Because an individual case doesn't have a lot of data in it, but what you're looking at are, like you say, trends. You're looking at disparities in arrests over 5 years or whatever. You know what I mean? So, folks may know this, but like when you're talking about the data security issues, that's from maybe like last year or the year before that Greg wasn't able to get the tools that he thought he needed.
Right.
And so just used his own. And when you're talking about city-owned police records that might have sensitive information on them on a laptop or whatever that's maybe not as secure, whatever that means, like that raises some red flags for folks. But my understanding is that's, first of all, it predates you, obviously, and that it has been buttoned up and taken care of, and therefore this whole ordinance amendment, if it's just responding to that, maybe isn't necessary.
It's absolutely not necessary. And I think, there's a couple of reasons why, right? We are all, like, in my job, like, this is not my first rodeo, right? So, like, in our work, we know what the best practices are. It is when MPD use consultants, those consultants are working from home on their personal computers. They're not on a city or county or a federal system. They are working on their own computers. Now, there are federal laws that if officers or if a department is getting data from these entities, then they have to follow certain rules. Outside of that, our data analysts, and this was, again, pre my time, but our data analyst was making sure that folks' information, I want to be very clear because we are very sensitive to victims and complainants, and just the identity of everyone and their information. With that being said, nothing that Greg had would have fallen under being able to identify or people's information being vulnerable. It just didn't happen. And so there are ways in which you can utilize data where there's no identifying factors. That is a normal thing. It was painted a certain type of way because when this office should not be a political pawn in any regard. And this is why we're supposed to be independent of all these entities, because these narratives can be created that creates harm and creates mistrust and discredits the work that is now truly being produced, right? And so I just want folks to know data was never an issue. It was that the city initially said they did not want to run the software on their city webs or their city system, okay? They didn't want to run the software because of, hackers and all of these different things. And so since they weren't willing to do that, it was authorized by the former monitor for Greg to do that, but there was no identifying factors. It was blind data in a sense of just him being able to work with the numbers and not actual names and information of people.
Right. So it wasn't even that big of a problem. And even if it
it was addressed on day one.
And it was addressed.
When I got here on December 8th, there had been a hold by the chief. We talked about it. We talked about what I was going to do moving forward.
A hold meaning he wasn't sharing data anymore.
Yeah.
At that moment.
Yeah. So there was a hold prior to me coming on board, and that had taken place while the interim to the interim was serving. And day one, we had a meeting. I had a meeting with the chiefs, and we moved past it. But people created a lie and a narrative to wake something up that was literally not an issue at all.
You referenced at the city council meeting the other night, which went really late, as they tend to do. You referenced a meeting you had with the city attorney.
Yes. That
ended up being like 3 hours, and that you came to some sort of agreement. Can you characterize what that agreement was?
Sure. It was I kind of talked to him about all of the ways in which, and the chair was in the room of PCOB as a witness to office.
Maya Pearson was chair at that point?
Yes. Yes. Still is.
Still is, yeah.
And we were having this conversation about independent counsel, the same conversation I've had with him since the day I came here, December 8th. And so this was after MGR presented the amendments to the ordinance. And so I kind of talked to him about how they had asked me for a list of my open investigations because they said if they had any of those cases and they were litigating, they asked me if I would not do investigations until those litigations are over. So that's a conflict right there as why we need independent counsel.
Is that normal? Is it normal? If there's a, I mean, you obviously drawing on your experience, having done this elsewhere,
yes.
If there's a independent oversight investigation and litigation at the same time, is that okay? That they're happening simultaneously?
Yes, because we're independent oversight. We're literally there to do our job. And investigations need to happen, even though some might take longer than others. The importance of when we're gathering that information and doing that work is really important. So no, for them to ask me that, it's not normal. But for them to explain why, it made sense. MPD right now, if the city has an open litigation, MPD holds on their investigations. Okay, that is an agreement. That's not law. That's an agreement, right? And so I said, in good faith, I don't want you all to lose your insurance because there might be complainants that end up having to file a lawsuit. I want them to be able to get paid through that insurance, right? So I will operate in good faith. I will not give you a list of open investigations, which you should have never asked me for, but you can provide a list to me.
Right.
And so we kind of went through that process. But again, I asked them, is this a case of, is it a city policy? Or is it just any agency that you all represent in the city? That question still has not been answered.
Are there any agencies that the city attorney doesn't represent?
Well, there's the PFC.
The Police and Fire Commission, which is, this came up at the meeting, that's slightly, it's not exactly a city agency because it's not.
They're a city board. They're like the PCOB.
Right. It's a board.
Exactly.
Of citizens.
Exactly.
But there's not like a department head of the PFC.
But the board, so there's not a separation when it comes to the city attorney and his stance on independent counsel. He's not saying PCOB can have independent counsel, but I can't because I'm a city agency, right?
Oh, sure.
He's saying PCOB can't have independent counsel either, right?
Well, we should clarify that the original ordinance clearly says that they can.
Yeah.
For investigative purposes, right? But what's he saying you can't have it for?
So if you drop down, the ordinance also says that the independent police monitor has the ability to have independent counsel for activities of the office. And the language might be a little, but it's beyond just investigative.
Okay.
Yeah, it's beyond just investigative. And so that's what they're trying to limit it to, is just investigative.
So that's what the amendment is
to hone in on only investigative. And right now we do have the ability to have independent counsel beyond just investigations. And there's so many reasons for it, because when MPD did not share officer transcripts with me, not because they didn't want to or not because they were withholding it. They were in the process of sharing it, but the city attorney stepped in and stopped them because based on their interpretation of the law and changing it into a public records request. So they manipulate or change public records. They had their counsel going back and forth with me, who was operating as my counsel.
Right. So you also said that the agreement you came to, which was basically that he would share the list with you, and then you would agree to not pursue those investigations that are on his list.
So that was a previous meeting. The meeting with the PCOB chair and myself, that was more so we would draft up what independent counsel would do for my office and for the board versus what the city attorney's office would do. And I was willing to potentially compromise on things pertaining to open meetings law stuff, and public records request only when it is the public requesting records from us, because obviously if we don't provide them, the city would have some liability. But those were the only two areas in my draft, and he completely changed course on that, and that's where you see that in the emails.
Did he agree to that initially and then change his mind? Or
so we talked through some things, and we said we were going to leave that meeting, that 3-hour meeting, and draft it up and send it to each other. But in my memo, you see the 2 emails he sends. And the last email, he basically says that, he's aligning on the side of MGR, as well as there was no other provisions, laid out for independent counsel beyond investigations.
All right. So a lot of this has to do with who knows what is happening, right? It's hard to do an investigation if you're, not that you want to operate in secret necessarily, but you also don't want to necessarily tip your hand when you're trying to investigate an incident or a person or whatever. But also who shares what information, what data. It sounds like you're saying Chief Patterson is open to sharing as much information as needed, which the ordinance, there was some discussion over the word unfettered at the meeting, which
that's in the ordinance,
which is in the ordinance.
Yeah.
Unfettered access to data, right?
Yes. Very clear.
Yes. And I don't think that word is particularly ambiguous.
Yes.
But there's some, but does the city attorney kind of feel like he's got to have some sort of control over how fettered the information is?
Well, they're actually, if you look at the amendment changes, they were trying to take out that word altogether.
Were they really? I missed that.
They were trying to take out that word and be very specific on how kind of almost changing what unfeathered meant, and also leaving it up to enforcement through the MOU. And
the MOU being this is a proposed. Did this ever actually happen, or is this
so? There's
proposed?
A current MOU in standing right now.
Okay, between who?
This was the office and MPD with the city attorney signing it as well. Okay. And this happened with the former independent police monitor.
Got it. And is that they're trying to modify that?
So on day one, I told him I was going to draft a more comprehensive because I wanted to include things like independent counsel and our case management system and all of the things that were necessary and needed to lay out in the MOU, so that there could never be a situation where information is not flowing or there's blocks or holding up of information flow. Me and Chief both agree a lot of what we do now impacts when other people come in, right? And we want to be able to lay that foundation.
It seems to me that, as you mentioned, there were people resistant to this back in 2020, right? And it happened, and it's up and running. This is just, I'm going to editorialize for a second, because it seems to me that there's some folks who have been pointing at it for the last 6 years, saying, "See, it doesn't work."
Right.
And now they're like, "Oh no, it works."
Right, exactly.
Oh, what do we do now that is working? Now we definitely have to kill it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's maybe hyperbolic, but am I wrong on that? Does that seem
on day one? I literally said, it is one thing to say it's not working and it's not operating effectively or efficiently. I said, but the new fight you all as board members are going to have, and us as an office, is that when cases are being reviewed and closed and there are, justice happening and mediation happening, and there are, relationships being built with MPD, and everything is starting to operate and move the way the ordinance intended it to, there's going to be resistance in a completely different way. And I think while I used to be a part of politics years ago, heavily a part, I haven't had this much media on anything in a really long time. I think since I got here, I've been in the media every week. And I'm like, why was everybody asleep for 6 years? And now all of a sudden, now that things are actually getting done, I didn't have to do an annual report. I had only been, when we started working on the annual report, I had only been here less than 2 months. I didn't have to do that, but I felt like the people deserved an outsider like me coming in to say, here's what we need. Here's what's working really well. And here's what's not working and what we can do to move forward to get things to where we need to be, right? And so it's interesting seeing, I knew it was going to happen, but I didn't think the resistance would come so soon.
Yeah.
Let me just say that.
Yeah. Let me ask the big so what question, and like, why are we even bothering with this? Because in your experience, when there is a independent civilian oversight, and you said Madison's got one of the strongest ordinances, even as originally envisioned, how have you seen that benefit communities, people, police departments? What's the upside once if we just make this work? What can we expect? What's the upside?
So let me just say this, and I'll answer your question. While Madison has one of the strongest ordinances in the country, Madison is behind in so many areas. And to all the folks listening, I love your city, and it's no disrespect, but it's me being honest and transparent. With that being said, in a lot of other cities who have a lot of restraints around their independent oversight, or who had to fight to get to where the ordinance in Madison is, right? We see a reduction in lawsuits. We see a reduction in folks being harmed by the police. We see a reduction in officer-involved shootings. We see a reduction in custody deaths. So much so that folks are starting. This is while it might be new to Madison, this is not new around the country. And so now we're moving into oversight of jails and oversight of sheriff's departments. And in Maryland, it's a state mandate. Every city and county has to have independent civilian police oversight, right? And so you see that you see officer misconduct actually being checked. For so many years, officers have had the ability to investigate themselves. And with civilian independent oversight, now there's outside eyes either doing an independent investigation or doing a review of theirs and finding all of the things that you just inherently leave out because you are investigating yourselves. And we all know there's policing culture, right?
Sure.
But then there's also the ability to build community relationship, right? And build trust. There's so much trust that has been broken. And that's what civilian oversight does. When it operates well, it changed the relationship between law enforcement and the communities that it is entrusted to serve.
So is there a possibility that like PCOB could expand and become a county city thing, or does the county need its own sheriff's civilian oversight board?
So in each state, there's some uniqueness with state laws, but if you ask me, do they need it? 100% yes. Yes. But I think that I would hope that what we do here in Madison is expanded across the state. This office is the only of its kind in the state, but there's so many offices, inspector generals of law enforcement, LA, Oakland, San Francisco, other monitor offices, other independent civilian oversight throughout the country, and in every, in every part of a state, right? And so the state is behind, but Madison is leading in what it created in the ordinance. Madison needs to catch up when it comes to, we might have to be uncomfortable. When I call out racial disparities, that is uncomfortable. We might have to go through those growing pains. But what happens on the other side of that pressure, we can get something beautiful and strong,
Yeah. I laugh when you say that because, like, discomfort is difficult for Madison.
Boy, oh boy, I've learned.
Especially white Madison progressives are told that it's racist here and it becomes a problem. Yeah, one of the other things, and thank you for your time. You've given me a lot of time, so we'll wrap it up pretty soon. But one of the other things that's been proposed in a separate amendment was placing an alder as a member of PCOB. Why are you laughing at that? Seems reasonable, but what?
And I hear that. I know you're being sarcastic. It is not reasonable at all, right?
Right. Why not?
Because that is infiltrating the very independence that this ordinance mandates, right? That is, I think Madison leadership has to have a really good look internally on power.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that because when it wasn't operating the way it needed to operate, that would have been a time to put a coalition or a committee together to say, how do we put our resources and our energy behind this to make it work?
Mm-hmm.
That didn't happen. You get a Black woman that now has oversight of law enforcement, and now you want to police the office and police her when things are actually happening?
Mm-hmm.
That's the hard conversation and the hard look people have to take. So now you want power over this because of who's sitting there. And that's a longer conversation. You can have me back anytime, but
we've been kind of having various versions of that conversations for 10 years now. Yeah, I think I really, really appreciate your time and laying this out so clearly for us, because like I said, folks, especially this all happened kind of, from our perspective out here, it happened pretty quick. It's been going on for a long time, obviously. And it's something that folks get really, really passionate about, going all ways. So I think we just want to keep people as informed as possible and just hear your side of it, because like you've been in the media a lot, but your voice has not been. Right. Does that make sense? You know what I mean? Like,
I appreciate
a lot of people talking about you, but not to you,
not
or
to
with
me.
you. Right. Yeah. So that's what I hope to do today. But anything else that we should know about going forward?
Well, I think there's just two things I'll say really quickly. I'm so accessible. There are people on both sides of this that I have talked to. When the alders put these amendments forward, I had met with many of them and had started to meet. I'm at the point where I think I've met with all of them except for the two new that are coming in. I think I want people to take a look at not only the memo that I sent out, but just I laid it out very clearly. If everything was what they said it was, with all of these great intentions, then they would have given you the full story. There were things left out of the Legistar, responses back pertaining about leadership.
Yeah, I'm working on that as the listener. That's a whole separate thing that I'm actually kind of working on.
Okay.
That there's been some Legistars where they upload everything, where you can read the ordinance amendments, you can read the agendas for the meetings and all that stuff, and you can read, you're supposed to be able to read public comment. And city of staff have suddenly become really slow at uploading things to Legistar.
Mm-hmm.
And is it just that they're getting slow on all things, or are they dragging their feet on certain things? That's what I'm looking into.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, thank you for laying that out. But when they put forth an amendment, they have the ability to put all of the basically exhibit evidence in their legislature so people can review. And they put one-sided things. First, they said it was about kind of really me and my leadership, but then the department head said, she's a great partner to work with. We don't have any problems. And then the mayor's chief of staff puts out something sends an email and says, MGR, share this wide so folks will know pertaining to me. I hadn't met him at the time. He sent that out on April 4th. I met him on April 8th, my first meeting with the mayor in the mayor's office for the first time. She introduced me to her chief of staff who sent that out. And so they were really trying to create a picture. They left out the part where the department head said they had no issues with me, all of these things. And it was really around, they painted it to the alders as if there were policies being broken. There were no policies to this day. They haven't said one. The only issue was they didn't like to be challenged. They didn't like to be questioned. When the city attorney says something is law, just like this, it's law. I'm a critical thinker. I'm a researcher. I'm an investigator. I've been doing this a really long time. I can't just take, we'll all be running around. It's law. That's not the reality of it is. So I have to push back and ask questions. Is this city policy or is this just a practice? I'm only here for a limited amount of time. The city prides itself on equity. Equality gives everyone the same thing. Equity gives people what they need. And so what does this office need? That this office is unique. It has to operate independently. Are you giving it all of the resources that it needs? National best practices, 2 to 5% of the police budget. We are pennies on the dollar. We have crumbs. And then in the amendments changes, they also are trying to get it to where we have to do more reporting.
Quarterly. They want quarterly reports.
They want quarterly reports.
Right.
You know what I say to that? Show up to an executive committee meeting. That's where I give my quarterly reports. I give an IM report every single time. Show up to the full board meetings. They get an IM report. You all haven't been engaged, so that's why you can ask for something that's already happening. But I also don't want it in the ordinance because right now we're operating under-resourced and understaffed. And I want to make sure that we don't set anybody up. I'm a workaholic. I don't expect the next monitor to work the hours that I work. It's not sustainable, Yeah. And so, I set a standard because I wanted them to see what this could look like when it worked. But I also didn't want to have a way out of not doing this the right way and not giving the office and the board what it needs to get done and taking advantage of the work.
The ultimate result of all this was it looked like there was going to be a vote. It went to PCOB. PCOB said, "Don't do this. Wait.
Shut it down." Yeah.
But they went ahead anyway. They brought it to the city council on Tuesday, April 21st. On Monday, the 20th, you put out your memo, which was, I didn't realize until today, it was 31 pages. Very thorough. Which laid out a lot of what you said here.
On the 21st, same day as the meeting.
Oh, was it the same day?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought it was the day before. In any case, the result of all that and lots of public comment was that they basically kicked it. They deferred it.
Yes.
Right? They kicked it back to PCOB, and then which will then kick it back to the council in August. Was that a satisfactory result at this moment for you, or like what are the next steps, I guess?
There's many next steps. It's really about they did not engage the community, nor the PCOB, nor myself around these amendment changes. There are a lot of things, while everybody wants to get input, and I say this in the most humble way. You brought in an expert in this, and then you want to fight and resist on what is recommended and needs to be done. Almost to the point where, and I don't know if you listened to the meeting, but they were asking the chair about investigations. So that tells me you're not engaged. You didn't read the reports that you asked for and demanded, right? And that criticized, because you would know if you read the report that the board does not do investigations. And so it's things like that where the next step is them actually engaging and learning about the work being done, actually reading the report that we released on time, and coming to the table to say, how do we make this stronger? And that's what I agreed to the other night in that deferring of it.
Very good. All right. Ms. Glass, I appreciate your time so much.
Thank you so much.
And stay in touch.
Definitely.
Yeah?
Anytime.
All right. We'll be back right after this. And we're back, and thanks again to Mika Glass for that. And we're going to wrap it up with our roundtable question. Stephanie?
So, this is a fun one. What's a compliment you've received that you're still not sure, or maybe you're still sure, that was an actual compliment?
That wasn't an actual compliment?
Yeah. Whether you were, like, maybe you're not sure it was a compliment. Maybe you are sure it was not a compliment. I am sure it was not a compliment.
So as a man, we are generally so compliment stars. It's impossible.
We'll take anything we can get.
Anything we can get.
Yeah.
But someone told me, I like your nose, but in a very aggressive voice. And I can't tell.
Like, I don't know.
can't tell
Like,
what
what do you mean? I've been told I have a pretty nose before, but
that's a feature of yours that you get
it's
compliments
a feature.
on.
I have a nose. I have a great nose. But this person said it in such
An
aggression
Yeah.
that I don't.
You're not sure.
No, and it haunts me to this day.
I don't get this as much as I used to. It does come up, and this is why it came up for me again. And I think when people say this, I know when people say this, they think it's a compliment. That I speak English well, or that I speak well. It only just came up. So I came up, I was like, yeah. I was like, that's not the compliment you think it is. Every time I say that to someone, they're like, what do you, wait, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, when I was younger, when I was like a teenager, I didn't like mess with it. But now, like, during college, I started to like give back and like, here's feedback for you. That's not a compliment.
I did like to used to say to people when they said that to me, thank you, I'm from Wisconsin, so this is that's a great compliment.
It's always been a dream of mine, coming from the state of Wisconsin.
Right. The only thing that comes to mind, I'm sure I could think of one if I thought about it for a little while, but the one that comes to mind is the first day of 8th grade.
This is back.
I'm clinging to this one. Standing in the line for lunch, my friend Mike turned to me and said, Robbie, you're normal sized. I had a big growth spurt between 7th and 8th grade.
Yes, we know this, or some of us know this.
And he's like, wow, you're like normal size now. I was normal size for an 8th grader, and I haven't grown since. Really. So
I feel that.
This is, I maxed out. I was like 13.
So everybody who is like shorter than 5'7",
yeah,
feels this right now.
Feels this, yeah.
I was the tallest in my elementary school. I have not grown an inch since 6th grade.
See, Rob grew at least like in 8th grade.
Yeah, between 7th and 8th, I went from like 4'11" to 5'5" or whatever.
And my younger brother is again 6'4".
Are you okay? You need a moment?
He calls me his little brother.
So. Yeah, I try to say to my sister who's older, and I say, "Come look like my little sister."
Yeah,
and that upsets her. Because then I also remind her on her birthday, like, "Wow, today you were much older than me than you were yesterday."
Well, he does. When I say stop calling me little brother, he says old brother.
Which also hurts you.
That also hurts. So
he was listening to your needs. He was responding to them. All right, friends, we will be back next week.
"365 Amplified" is produced and edited by me, Rob Chappell. and is a production of 365 Media Foundation, a nonprofit, local, independent media organization in Madison, Wisconsin. Wherever you're listening to this right now, hit the subscribe or follow button to get new episodes every Friday. And between episodes, get your latest news at madison365.org and follow us on Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Threads. Wherever you get your news, we'll be there.